world of coaching evolving and the carousel always changing, we're going to sit down with some coaches and we're going to figure out what they coach, how they coach, and most importantly, why they got into this profession. My name is Casey Wilkinson, and I am your host of the Coaches Why podcast.
That's a great question.
That was my Coaches Why.
Welcome back to another Coaches Why podcast, guys. We have a very special guest joining the show today, Coach Seth Huston from Rice University. He is the head swimming and diving coach there, and first ever swimming and diving coach I've had on the show, as well as first D1 at that when it comes to the swimming and diving. So super excited to talk a little bit about everything with you. So Coach, thank you for joining the show today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here.
Absolutely, man. So swimming and diving, just jumping straight into it, right? Like probably one of the most watched sports when it comes to like the Olympics, right? At that world level, probably one of the most intense sports to watch and things of that nature. What do you think makes the sport so interesting and maybe so polarizing to the world when it comes to, that level of athletics?
I mean, we definitely swimming is kind of has its place in the Olympics for sure. I mean, and the sport of swimming, the elite level athletes, that's what they're driving for. And there's all sorts of other national team opportunities, world championships, Pan Pacifics, a lot of different big events to make national teams. But that's the be all end all. I think it's just bringing together the whole world, the best of every country, and the United States. I mean, it is much watched here in the U.S., and to the USA Swimming's credit, we've kind of been the big dog in that. So I think Americans like to watch.
It doesn't. I mean, it helps whenever you have, like you said, whenever Americans are good at it, and you have people like Katie Ledecky and Michael Phelps. Obviously, these are all people that are in the last 10, 15 years, of course, but they were a huge driving force into viewership and people interested in everything. So, very good point there. But let's talking about you. Where did you grow up? And when did you get involved in sports, but maybe swimming, since that's what we're coaching?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And when I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, I mean, swimming. We're kind of getting up there in years now. So, the East Coast was fast, the West Coast was fast, Midwest, particularly Missouri was not a big swimming state. But as the world has kind of moved faster, right? Swimming and competitively is much more balanced across the country. I mean, there's definitely the pockets. But for me, I played all the sports. I mean, I did everything. And I started swimming when I was 11. So I was pretty late to the sport. I didn't even swim year round until I was in 8th grade. And okay. I feel like I was just really drawn to sports, in every facet. I'd be out there dreaming, throwing the baseball against the wall. I had basketball hoop in my backyard, and I'd play me solo, and I'd be 5 guys on each team playing. I mean, that was just my thing. I loved to kind of envision and imagine big things happening. So, but really swimming, I'll tell you, when I got in the water, it was just kind of introduced to it. It's a great place to be. Like you kind of gravity, you defy it, flow through the water. It's a great feeling, and I've never stopped. I still swim today. So I just probably was better at a few other sports because I was introduced earlier. But I mean, you couldn't get me out of the water. I loved it.
Yeah, swimming is it's hard to put into words like how you feel in swimming. I'm sure everybody's been in some water at some point in their life, and I can understand now. They'll bring the competition out of that though, like. You see people like, like playing baseball or playing basketball, just pick up games and stuff like that, right? Like whenever you win a race in swimming, say I'm faster than you in swimming, or it's like racing and track, like, old school, whenever you're a kid, take off your shoes and run on the grass, right? That little like just pick up track and field event kind of, right? It feels really cool whenever you get a chance to win in a swimming event. So you said you started a little late, right, when you were 11. And so as you got through your middle school and high school in the swimming sport, when did you have a chance, or when did you realize that you could go to the next level? I guess we could start there. Did you go to the next level? We guess we could start with that answer. And then two, when did you realize like, oh, maybe I'm good enough to go, to college?
Yeah, yeah. So I play. So you get to high school, you kind of have to pick and choose. And
Hmm.
swimming is a pretty unforgiving sport. I mean, if you really want to be good, you got to do it year round. And I mean, and that's a very broad statement, but that's kind of how it is. I mean, the elite, they don't ever take a break. I mean, their breaks are short. Um, so I played water polo and swam, and yeah, I knew I wanted to play sports in college. I mean, again, I could have if I chose to go down soccer route, I'd have played soccer. If I chased basketball, I would have played baseball. All those. So I ended up I was again swimming was a little behind in Missouri, but I walked on at LSU. LSU at that
Okay.
time was kind of at the bottom of the SEC, but they had their coach was out hustling trying to build a squad. He was new there, and he took a chance on me. Now Louisiana, talk about different from Missouri back in that time, very different. And I'd say that was kind of I went there sight unseen. Definitely, it definitely was not my vibe in the big
Yeah.
scheme in the end of things. And so I came home after the freshman year, and I ended up transferring to University of Tampa. So University of
Okay.
Tampa is Division II. So I was at University of Tampa, swam there, and actually, I think you could probably get to something like this later, but frustrated athletes can make pretty good coaches, I think, and not, again, maybe getting to the sport late, probably being in my head a little too much. I took a year off, stayed in touch with the team as like a student coach, trained for triathlons. They were kind of new at the time, and you always got to burn some energy and compete. And something new like that is a great way to kind of just get a fresh outlook on life and what you're
Yeah.
made of. But I never stopped coaching after that. I kept coaching with the collegiate team, started coaching a club team, and when I graduated, next thing you know, I'm going off to get be a GA at TCU, and just kept going from there.
Absolutely. So you spent time at the college ranks coaching, and you just kind of stayed there, and you just worked your way throughout your career. So when did you? And you're right. There are some things that you mentioned that we're definitely going to touch base on that I'm definitely intrigued about. With the frustrated athlete and in your own head and stuff like that, which we'll probably jump into here in just a minute. But you know, you said that you went to LSU and then you went to Tampa and you just kind of stuck with the coaching world. So what was it that made you decide that you wanted to coach? Like when did you decide that this is what you wanted to do with your life?
Um, Dan, I'd say, going back to all the sports I played, usually, when you're a youth, most of my initial sports, we were, a dad was coaching the team, things like that.
Hmm.
So when I started swimming year round, it was, and again, we're like here, this is like late 70s, eighth grade or so. That was the first coach I had that was his job. I mean, he was a teacher and a coach. Then, of course, high school, I really respected my high school coaches. I do very, what they said, I did,
Right.
but then when I joined a club, a more kind of higher level club team, that was the coach's job. I mean, he did nothing else. And I was like, that is awesome. How cool is that? You get to
Yeah.
coach, and that's how you're making your living. And then again, when I went off to college, the University of Tampa head coach, again, that was his gig. That's what he did. But he made a big impact. It's like, I love what you do. I love how you do it. That's what I want to do. And so
Yeah.
I just got reinforced along the way with kind of admiring the people I was training under in that, and what they did and how they did it.
Yeah. And that's actually a great segue to speaking of like the influential coaches in your life, right? I know that you might have had a few, maybe good, maybe bad, but when you think to your time as a coach, whether you think about it as an athlete looking up to a coach, like you said, these guys, that was their job, but you've also spent time and you've been coaching for a while. So who was that influential coach, and maybe speak on and you, like you said, there might be a few, but what did they teach you as not only a coach, but maybe as a person, that you have appreciated over time?
Well, I would definitely say at this point in my life, for sure, when you look back, eh, you know, eh, there's a lot of things you draw from the different
Hmm.
programs, different coaches you swam under. And, I think when you take in all that experience, you got to go with who you are. Like I can take pieces from all these different coaches I trained under in that. And because I knew that those pieces resonated with me and became a part of like who I am as a coach.
Right.
And I got to be true to me. Also, there are some things that just were not my personality or how I would do something, and you learn like, I don't think that would go for me. So you don't blanket follow someone. You're taking pieces of that. So kind of with that being said, like my first real kind of year-round club coach was at a YMCA in the St. Louis area, and his name was Gary Lutker. And I'd say out of that, I mean, one of the things that was a small club team and it was like a family. I mean,
Mm.
he coached it like it was a family. We would go on campouts. We would go do river floats. I mean, there was all these different things. It's just, it, it was a really, really cool experience. When I was later in high school, I swam for a really high level club in St. Louis, and very intense coach. His name was Jim Tynan. Super successful. I mean, he over the years putting people on national team, Olympic team. I learned expectations there. I mean, like he had high expectations, and by God, you were going to meet him, And but his style is definitely not my style. Very intense, very kind of in a way punitive. And but the real interesting thing is so many people from my club days that swam for him coach today. So
Mhm.
clearly he made some kind of very positive impression on us. But again, his style and my style are going to be different. And then I swam for Ed Brennan at University of Tampa, and Ed, I think one of the things like he's kind of a Pied Piper. He liked to get up there and give rah-rah speeches, super creative, always trying to think out of the box of making training fun, not just work.
Yeah.
And and I mean, he really valued like his assistant coaches. I mean, I'm like 23 when I think I left him, and I mean, he gave me a lot of responsibility and trusted me, and that was huge. At that age, like just imagine the confidence that I probably had that I probably really didn't deserve,
Yeah.
at
Right.
23, kind of leaving there. And then I think kind of my other big model was Richard Siebesma. Was the head coach at TCU. He's retired now. Um, Richard, he at TCU he ran men and women. Like, he lived the sport. And one of the things again I think I learned with him is it goes with expectation. Like what I say goes. These things are like I'm not yielding on these. These are that important. And I had to learn a little bit the hard way as an assistant. He's like, you want to coach here, you got to follow the way I want to run the program, things like that.
Mhm.
And I did, but he
Right.
was not afraid to set you straight. There was no beating around the bush, and you always knew where you stood with him. And he is an amazing, like the way he stayed connected to all of his former athletes and just follows their lives and that like he really cared about the person, and I
Yeah.
think that's what I got most from him.
Sounds like you had a lot of really good coaches that were influential in your life, and not only as a person but as a coach. I think that's one of those things that, as a coach, which I hope most of us have. Like you said, he did a really good job staying, connected in your life, and really wanting to make sure that you were, or yeah, you were, ready for the real world, right? Giving you these expectations and these and these responsibilities, like you were saying at 22, 23, the coach at Tampa. It's one of those things where you have to understand and kind of find these athletes, and or and understand them, right, as they develop, as they mature, knowing there's kind of that fine line, right, where, the more you get to know them, I feel like you can give this same standard, of course, and that's not really, maybe something that's flexible. Like, that's not going to be flexible. These are our standards. These are what we're going to hold it up to. But maybe giving somebody these responsibilities and understanding that this person may be really good at, the talking point. So maybe this person's one that you give the floor a little bit more to speak to the team or to you or whatever. And this one may be more of the workhorse in the weight room or in here, right? So maybe they kind of take the floor there or outside or whatever the situation may be, right? So understanding your athletes and individually understanding them as well, to where when that time comes, right, they kind of feel a little bit more of that sense of, I'm wanted and needed here, as well as, I'm appreciated too. And I think that goes a long way, kind of going back to that frustration as an athlete. Sometimes when you don't get the ability to speak or do or whatever, because you're forced to be, whether it's silent or whatever the case, which we didn't get into why you're frustrated, but these things are reasons why some athletes do get frustrated, can really hurt maybe the development or maybe their ability to grow, right? If we don't allow that floor, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think you kind of pinned something that I think resonates to me the most is, all these athletes are coming from different backgrounds. You asked like what my frustration was, and when I look back, I think I was putting too much of my who I was as an athlete, and a lot of comparing to my teammates and where I wanted to be in the sport. And I mean, it was just unnecessary weight on my shoulders. And at 18, 19, 20, we're young and dumb, and it was just I couldn't. Actually, I did kind of get past it at that point, but once I started coaching, you just couldn't. I loved it. It was great, and I was training in other ways, and so I just didn't go back to it as a collegiate athlete. But I think that for me has helped me empathize and see, okay, who's putting too much of their self-worth just in their sport. Who's like, I'm doing individual meetings right now, and compare myself to others is a losing game. Most of us don't compare down, we compare up, and is like, I get it, and I've been there, and so it's pretty easy to talk about. It's easy to listen, and I understand a lot of times where they're at, even to this day, and we try to problem solve our way out of it.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is, because you're hitting it exactly on the head. I'm the same way, especially as an athlete growing up. As a coach still, like I try not to do it as much anymore. Like you said, you kind of learn from it, but for a long time, and probably still a little bit to this day, you compare a little bit. And so my favorite quote that I try to live by and try to, I coach women's wrestling at the 2-year space. And so trying to get them mentally to understand, comparison is the thief of joy. So the more that we compare, especially to people that we want to be like, or we want to beat, or whatever they're comparing, right, it can definitely get in your head. And that mental game is so important, especially, not comparing wrestling to swimming, but they're both individual sports. And individually, you make the team better to where we can be competitive as a team, right? And so it's very easy to fall into that trap and be difficult to move on from it. So, because you've been through it, because you have experienced that as a coach, how do you coach a kid through that? You may see that this kid is maybe swimming really, really well, or diving, because I know you're a diving coach as well, right? Maybe they're doing really, really well, and then they have one bad meet, or they have one bad, maybe they're in a little bit of a slump in comparison to what they were doing. Or maybe it's just this person in your team is doing something better than them, right? And they kind of get into that headspace. So how do you coach a kid through that to where, you can hopefully get them out of that and help them use that potential negative energy for positive, for them to use as fuel?
Yeah. I mean, so, everybody's gonna be different, and, and so, trying to give you, here's how I look at it. Right now we're in our out of season. We're post season. Our season ended in March. I look at April very, very much. We take all our returners, they're in doing out of season training. They work on kind of a reflection of the season and kind of like setting goals. And I want to, like, we do things like I like measurable goals. I want them to set things. I think that becomes but you have a lot of athletes who want to avoid that. They do, their relationship with goal setting is not good. And so there again, that's another way I got to help teach them that setting goals is a good thing. And if your relationship is not healthy with it, why? Right. And when it comes, now we all learn at different rates, but in the long run, I just dial into the process, and I want people to know where they're aiming, where they're going for. But once we call it out and we say we're doing it, like, we rarely talk about it anymore. Sometimes, I might say, are you on your pathway to your goals to reboot them? But it's all about, how do I get there? It's the process, and the process in my mind. Again, I'll have people say, I got to improve my turns. I got to work on my start. I got to get stronger. Yes, but really it's really more your characteristics. I got to be more disciplined. I have to be more resilient. I have to improve my communication. I have to build some trust in the people around me. When we start to grow in those areas, everything rises. School gets better, your relationships get better. Oh, swimming, diving, it gets better. And so that's what I really invest a lot of energy into that end of it. And you have to do that now. And they have to be thinking and working on that through the summer. So when we're back in the fall, they're already, knee deep, up to their hips, so to speak, no pun intended, of getting better and improving that skill. And then we keep building upon that over the course of the season. So the goal really is that from now till we get to our championship season next year, they have evolved and grown, kind of performance-wise, relationship-wise, kind of in their role as a great influence on the team. And some people make big leaps, some people improve a little. Again, we're all going to kind of grow and change a little bit different rates. And again, it's just a process and evolution. I feel really fortunate. I get to be in a 4-year window. You really get to see massive change from the time you recruited them to the time they walk out the door and graduate. And people say, why do you coach? Hey, here's your question. I love to see that development, from when we recruited them to who they are when they leave. And I mean, your explosive kind of emotional growth is in that window, and you could get stunted and really screwed up. We all know that in that 18 to 23, or you can come out on the other side like ready to tackle the world. And so, I love to be in that environment and just be supporting them through that.
Yeah. Development is huge, and you're right. Being at the 4-year level, you do get the opportunity to see them truly take those leaps. And I think, especially as you have evolved as a coach, you've probably evolved how these goal setting meetings are, and some of these end of year meetings and stuff have gone, and it's pretty cool to see. Like I said, even at the 2-year space, that freshman to sophomore leap is really cool. So I can imagine freshman to senior, and just what that is. But it sounds like at the end of the day, it just comes down to, their mentality and what they're understanding what they need to improve on, and really them taking those leaps so they can, not only get better, but also so that comparison issue isn't such a big thing, at least on every single time that they step in the ring, jump in the water, right, or whatever the case is. So that's a great point, and I know that you've talked about. I had this question I wanted to talk about earlier, but I asked you about this frustration thing. But I one thing that I think is really intriguing, because I don't know, is the club space. You mentioned that a few times about how you were in clubs and you joined clubs and you were under different club coaches, right? Like in baseball and even wrestling, you just see club sports is such a big thing in today's world, right? In terms of whether it's a pay to play aspect or whatever the case is, it's such a big piece of American sports that you don't really necessarily see as much in, Australia or Spain or wherever you may be looking, and just other areas of the world. So, when it comes to the club, what makes club, at least in the world of swimming and diving, important? And, is it as big of a thing in the sport of swimming as it may be in like baseball and other things that are really differentiators to determine if you're college level or if you're not, essentially, if that makes sense?
It does. Again, I want to say swimming has had a club system for a long time. Again, out on the West Coast, California, there's club teams that have been around 60, 70 years, have storied programs, East, and that, of course you get Chicago was very big, a lot of really good high school, but very good club programs feeding them. And I feel like swimming has been one of those sports that's been in the club system a long time. When I know like volleyball, probably when gymnastics obviously was a big club sport because that's the only way you're going to do it. But I know volleyball, soccer were really infantile club sports when I was in high school and college, and they're huge, right? Baseball, I didn't know anybody who played on a traveling team when I was a kid. I mean, there might have been a team or two in St. Louis at the time, and now that's it. People trying out and making teams. So swimming and diving definitely, that's just where you're getting into a club at a young age, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You're developing through the program, and you move from one age group development to maybe a higher level group to finally you might be in the senior group or the national team group. And so it's taken seriously. And I think the one thing, I think high school sports and college sports can do that's very difficult to do on the club side, at least in an individual sport like us, is team can really swimming for your team can bring out the best in you. You're swimming for something more than yourself. And I think club swimming has a hard time doing that. Most teams, there's a few who can. YMCA can kind of do it, but I get most of the kids when they get here, it's kind of all about them chasing their times and their improvement more than like what their team did. And again, it's got to be a shift in how they approach the sport and how they look at it. I have people coming in talking about doing big things through their career, and by the end of their career, they're more about their team, and they swim really well for their team more than they are chasing their goals. Which again, I think it's just how you evolve. And you got that. It's a different approach, it's a different way to kind of see the sport that we're in.
Right. For sure. Yeah. So the club space and swimming has just kind of always been something, like you said, it's been around for a long time, and it's like you said, it's an area for them to evolve. I just find it interesting, the club conversations, because like sounds like swimming has been a place that, because it's such an established thing, right, that it's always been made for development, and it's not as publicized, there we go, or like pay to play aspect as like baseball and some of these other ones. So I can appreciate that swimming has kind of kept it to its core, at least sounds like, from when it was originated, essentially. And so kind of talking about the differentiations between club and high school, and maybe just coaching in general, the sport itself. What do you think, especially that since you've been coaching and you never really took the leap, or you always kind of been at the college level, but you've also seen the sport evolve, right? So what are some of the biggest challenges you feel like you faced from when you first started coaching to now? And not necessarily recruiting, because I know we'll touch a little bit about recruiting here. I don't want to take too much time, because I know that's always probably a big question and big conversation for you, especially transfer portals and all those things that you probably have to potentially deal with. But we won't dive too much into those things, of course, today. But in the general terms of coaching, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges you faced from when you first started to now?
Well, I'd say, I think the way we train athletes today and the way we trained in the late 80s, for the most part, is when I really started mid 80s on coaching, is different. And technique, what the way, just the evolution of understanding propulsion and reducing drag and resistance and things. I mean, it's different, very different than what it was before. And just because we've learned, oh, that really isn't a good thing. And, this, we were teaching, it's just funny. I think back to how we would maybe teach something technical back in 1985. And you're like, man, how far off base were we on that? So I think that's really changed. You have to evolve. And I think for me, one of the really good things, I've never stopped swimming. So getting in the pool is kind of like my laboratory. If I can figure it out in the water, makes me a better teacher and how to explain it. I know what they're going through. I know what muscles are going to be engaged. And so I think it really helps me teach and then relate to what they're doing. I think technology is massively different. Like I used to think I used to be able to do all my own tech on my 286 computer, 386 then. Like, but I'm in college and I got an IT guy, and I'm a dinosaur now. So all my younger coaches and staff and people, they're the ones who kind of, I say, take care of the tech. But there's all, we can do stuff and pick up like stroke rates, stroke counts, time spent underwater before they surface, all kind of data being pulled in through media. We got scoreboards that are with TVs now, and we got underwater cameras where we can delay the watching it because we put the Wi-Fi connection out of the water. I mean, now there's some hand like paddles where you can pick up stroke pull patterns and find out the direction of the forces. And I mean, it like things you could never have done before we can do now. So I think that's really changed, and I think you got to be willing to check it out, test, try it, utilize it, figure out how to make the most of those things. And I think those are some of the biggest changes. I think for the athlete, to me, the biggest change is, and this isn't bad, it's just a change. I am now recruiting children of people that like I would have recruited 25 years ago. And the way parenting is now from 25 years ago, and it's evolved into it now, in the way media with the kids, like I'm fortunate with the swimming, they cannot bring their phone into the water. But like I walk all over campus and that phone is never far away. Because and how much time and energy do they put into that, and how much are they getting feedback that they don't need or that they shouldn't, or like does it keep you from going to sleep, all those things. So I think it's a lot more I feel like maybe more variables and more distractions that as a coach you're trying to help them navigate or reduce. And I feel like honestly I think those are some human things that are different from if we had our own issues back then. But
of course, it's different. The elevation evolution, there we go. I don't know why evolution, I still put an L in there, I don't know why I couldn't say that. Evolution of just technology and where we are. I think that's also something that I didn't really think about, but like an underrated, probably another thing I always say, it's underrated to talk about like the mental side of the sport. I think that's something that is relatively, whether it may not be talked about, and maybe I'm just naive to it, but I feel like it's relatively underrated in terms of like or maybe undercoached is like the mental side of things, right? And maybe just because maybe from the outside too, right? Like everybody's talking about the wins and losses, and if they're good character, good people, whatever these conversations may be, but some people don't talk about like the mental side of things that go into it, and like you said, the distractions is part of that. And so that's also, I think, another thing that may be undercoached is like, how do we limit outside distractions, right? And I think at your level, the Division I level, which not to say that it's any different, but you guys also have and correct me if I'm wrong, but also just because of the level it is, the names, the brands, stuff like that, I feel like there's also this underlying pressure, I guess, that you could put on it, just in terms of like well, you're Division One, right? So these things are maybe a little bit more scrutinized than maybe some other levels in their own regard, not in a bad way necessarily, but I just think that that's also something. So like the evolution of like the distractions of what that brings as well is something that you have to coach through. Like you said, like, yeah, I could go D1, right? But are you coming Division One because you want the party style, you want the lifestyle of division, like you want the, fraternities, sororities, all the things that could be negative about it. I'm not saying those are negative, but there are negative things that happen at every school. Or are you coming here because of this, right? And we don't have to dive into that, but there are things that some schools at Division One level offer that you hear about that are different than at smaller schools. So I think you're right. That is something that coaching people through is another area of maybe underrated coaching, is the understanding how to handle these distractions that you have, and as simple as your phone, right? You hear these outside things. I always hear like professional athletes talk about, I don't pay attention to what people are talking about, on Sports Center or all these talk shows, and all these people that their names are always in other people's mouths that aren't even on the team. They're not around them, whatever. And that's partially maybe comparison we talked about earlier, but also just because of the level they're at. Very underrated. Another underrated area of coaching that I think it's not really talked about, at least in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, I'm pretty, in a different kind of space, and maybe some of the things you're talking about as far as like maybe like kind of that media scrutiny and what overseeing. But so many people really fail to see, it's easier to look at stats, look at the X's and O's, times, but behind the scenes, you just do not know what's, all, like literally all of the forces going against them, or kind of, think of it as, they're tethered to them, like, parent issues, sibling issues, boyfriend, girlfriend issues, school. Their self-worth, all these things are hanging on them. And swimming, the more things I have, the more puffier my suit, the more drag I have, whatever you want to call it, like, it's going to slow me down. And it's amazing how high level some of these people perform with all of that. And then you think, if you could just cut those off and lighten the load, again, think of it as a weight on your shoulders, how much better and where you could really go. Now envision someone trying to jump with 100 pounds of weight on them. You're not going to jump as high, and get rid of it, and all of a sudden your vertical is increased a whole foot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, very, very big piece of it. And, especially whenever you talk about the whole idea of like, imagine if these things were different, I guess, right? And so, and because we're on the level of overrated, or I should say I guess I brought up this level of underrated area of coaching. Speaking about swimming and diving, what do you feel like is an underrated and overrated technique in the sport of swimming or diving? It could be a practice scheme. It could be practice. It could be how like it could be drills that's in the world of swimming that is there. It could be maybe focus points that are in swimming or diving. Whatever you want to relay that could be something that's a focus point, or that people do, whether it's teams, coaches, individually, whatever it is that you feel like is overrated and or underrated in the sport.
Well, that's a good question. This is one man's opinion, and I bring my own biases into those things. But
of course,
I would say, let's say in our sport, and I coach women only right now. Mm-hmm. I do coach a few men in like kind of an adult in a more of a master's, but they're older. But I feel like and probably this might be a little more on the men's side, but I think it's just moved across the needle. We have really taken like power and speed and all of those things, and I think we've taken them almost, and we're swimming faster for it. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I think there's a place where it's we're we've kind of lost the foundation beneath it a little bit. And I have gone much more towards power and speed, but I do it very much timed within my season. And I think there's a lot of programs that have just kind of thrown themselves at. If we go race pace, if we swim at intensities that we compete at more, we will be better. But in my opinion, there's a point where there's kind of you've flooded the system, and the recovery time, the kind of knocking your central nervous system down too much, you can lose as many as you can help, right? So, and some really get helped and some really kind of struggle. So I think we've kind of maybe moved as a sport maybe a little more too far that way. What's underrated, I don't think it's taught enough, and I think starts at a young age, but I'm like really, really big into, I'm going to get technical on you, but posterior chain, just for anybody, is pretty much everything on the backside of your body from your neck down to your ankles. And like that is kind of your stability. Old people don't have very good posterior chains, right? They've weakened. So we want to train that. I want my athletes to train it, to warm it up, to activate it, and to think about using it when they're swimming. And it's involved in everything from starts to turns to how you hold your body position in the water. Because if you aren't engaging your posterior chain, your top is not going to be connected to your bottom. And I don't think that is really taught. And I know when I get freshmen coming in, I start saying that stuff. I mean, they're like, what are you saying? They're glazed over. And it takes a while to get them to kind of think about how they do, what they do, how they're moving from years and years and years of their development prior to that. So I feel like that's an area that could probably really be taught and addressed to a greater degree at a younger age, but even with collegiate athletes.
For sure. Yeah. So you're talking about this posterior chain. So like, just for a quick, like my own mental thought process too, which maybe I don't really think about, but obviously just a casual fan of watching swimming when it's on TV or whatever. But like diving and swimming, are they similar in terms of, like, for example, I know like diving, right? It's acrobatic, right? They're doing all these different flips and different mobility things with their body versus a freestyle 100 or a 50 meter breaststroke, whatever it is, right? These different race distances, are they, in my head, are we trying to stay as flat as possible, but also like it, because like I guess in my head I'm trying to think, but like I can understand what you mean, engaging it, keeping it activated the entire duration of your swim, right? You also you're trying to keep your body at a consistent level, right? If your hips or your butt dips lower, that's, I'm assuming, some drag, right? And maybe in basic terms, but you're creating this resistance against your body. So you're trying to stay as flat and aerodynamic as possible. Is that a fair assessment of what that
it is fair? Be? I would say hydrodynamic, but
hydrodynamic. There we go. I said aero. Yeah, hydrodynamic.
Same idea, but no, exactly. Like it, you're like, I know nothing about wrestling, but I'm sure if you're going to take someone down and you're not going to like use your arms and rotate them over. You're going to drive out of your core, out of your hips, out of the center of your mass, and rotate them over while you hold them and use their arms. So it's the same thing. It's taking kind of your core, your posterior, like your biggest, strongest stabilizing muscles, and then activating and utilizing them into these spindly little arms of mine. And these are my paddles, and then trying to get into a transfer power from here to here or down to my feet. So, that's just, and I get to be in a great place. I'm at Rice University. I mean, there ain't any dummies here. These girls that I'm coaching, they think too much, some of them, but there's times where like I want them really dialed in, knowing what they're doing with their body. And I have a pretty good, I just have a good teachable group. And when we do kind of that technical stuff, I mean, they do it, we talk about it, they give me answers, they tell me what they're feeling, they tell the whole team, and then we do some more. And I love that style, because swimming is a sport, our faces are in the water, we're not talking that much, but we're pausing and stopping and sharing what they're feeling, and kind of starting to gain understanding. And the person who's not saying over here in the lane 1 is hearing the person in lane 3 talk about, and they're like, wait, I'm feeling that too, maybe I'm on the right track. So now they're learning more from their teammates after I've just kind of set them up and guided them to it. And again, there's degrees of buy-in, and the buy-in might be a struggle as a freshman, and by their junior, senior year, they're like selling it. They're on it, and they're getting their teammates to believe it. So that's just kind of, again, tying everything together. But
Right.
yeah, technique
That's how that works.
It's huge. It's huge. It's a difference maker.
For sure. So speaking of, we've talked about development and, in terms of like, it's cool to see them develop and things like that. But an example, like what we're talking about, how they may get some feedback from a teammate or whatever they may be feeling, right? And you guys all work together to individually get better. Kind of a two-parter here is, how do you coach a kid or your team when it comes to feedback, right? After maybe they're not understanding something. Maybe it was a tough loss. Maybe it's because something went wrong, right? But a lot of the times I'm trying to relay this to the idea that whenever they're practicing these techniques and really trying to focus on these areas, like you said, maybe these 5 people are understanding it and this 1 or 2 aren't. Like how do you coach those 2? Maybe some negative feedback or maybe internal feelings or whatever the case is, maybe not negative feedback, but just the feedback that we're talking about that these guys are understanding and these girls aren't. How do you coach those 2 or 3 people through it? And then the second part of this is we've also talked about development in terms of like goal setting, right? Like that's sounds like a pretty big area when it comes to development for athletes, but like how do you get an athlete to go from, and I know you guys don't have like a JV, so that might not be a great reference, but maybe somebody who's not the starting 4 in the 4x2 or 4x1, whatever it may be, to where they are developing to where they are now being able to step in as the 2 anchor or 1 or not. I guess that 4 is the anchor, but maybe the 2 spot, or maybe they're making their way onto the lineup now. Whatever the case may be, same thing on the diving side. So I guess if those questions may correlate and make sense to you, how do you coach them through those things?
Okay, I got your question. I don't want to just create my own. I'm going to answer whatever. I'm going to try to dial into what you're saying. But to me, I think one of the things where you're saying like development or an athlete evolving, I really feel like I get to watch them train every day. You get to start to understand who really owns their sport, which is huge, and who has a ways to go in that. And everybody, that's the whole point. If I want you to be better than you want to be, with me in my program, that is destined for failure. Like, you have to want it. I will support you. I'll guide you. We'll create training plan. We'll do all those things, but you got to do it. You're the one who's in there doing the work. You're the one who's doing the racing. So again, I really recruit. I look for people who are passionate about the sport, tend to, I feel like, maybe see the glass half full versus half empty, things like that. And I look for some maturity, because we are going to take responsibility, own what you're doing. So kind of with that being said, I also feel like watching them and having the experience I have in my mind a vision of where they could go, what they're capable of. And I will share that with them, not in it's always in in a meeting or, just in constructive. And you got to kind of decide when you feel like they're ready to hear that kind of stuff, because you don't want it to be undue pressure, but you just want them, like, sometimes they don't see, they think their ceiling is here, and you're like, your ceiling is way up there, and so don't set this safe goal. Let's think bigger. Don't be afraid of that. Things like that. So I really like to get that out on kind of, to me, they're not going to walk out there and go like, oh, I'm ready to go. I know what he's saying. It goes in and chew on it for a while. And I think over time they elevate their expectations of themselves. So to me, that's what, like, and it, again, I can't get someone to change how they perceive overnight, but it's over time. I think like kind of along what you're saying, someone who's kind of, some people know their body are going to learn a lot faster than others, and they're going to slow walk everything. So it's always about going back to some basics. I keep waiting and trying to do things till I feel like they have the light bulb go off in their head.
Yeah.
And now, some people, the light bulb goes off a whole bunch of times and they evolve fast. Others, and you just kind of keep going back to the basics or re-explain, try to say it in a different way that you hope finally connects. And it wasn't the first time, it was the 20th time. So you just try not to give up on it.
Yeah, that's fair. I realized that question was a little long, and maybe I should have been more of a, how does your feedback feed into like development? It probably would have been a better question there. I realized as I answered, like, a little bit better. But no, that's a great point though. You don't give up on them, and you just keep going until stuff clicks, and then that eventually, hopefully, leads to them taking that opportunity to step into the lineup or into a position to where they may be point scoring for your team, I have a few questions, especially on the recruiting side, because I know that's something that you said that's something you look for. But before we jump into the recruiting side, I'm curious to know, because you'll look at these duels, or wrestling we call it duels. I don't know what you guys call it. I think it's just matches, but maybe a duel. You might see like 165 to 155 or whatever, right? Like it's a points scored per event that goes towards your team score. So, do you mind, just for brief explanation for myself as well, since I'm new to the world of understanding what those and how the scores bring together, but also maybe the listener out there who may not understand it too. Where do those points come from, and how are they brought to individually to make the team score?
Yeah, swimming is really, really bad at helping the fan understand what's going on, no doubt. So in a dual meet, which is what we do call them head-to-head against another team, generally most pools are any 6-lane or 8-lane pools, so each team would have 3 or 4 competitors max, and we usually score 5 deep. There's a couple of different scoring options, and coaches make a determination how they want to do it. But so in an individual event, first place would be 9 points, and it goes 9, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So first is pretty valuable. And if for instance, only 3 athletes on a team could score, so if I got first and 5th, I'd get 10. Their team got second, third, fourth, they'd get 9. If I won 2 of them, I get 1, 2, I get 14 points right there. And then relays are 11, 4, 2, 11 for first, 4, and they only go 3 deep. So when you get to a championship meet, like our conference championships, our NCAA championships, it varies on conferences, but at NCAA's, they score the top 16. So the A final is the top 8. That's where you're swimming for a national championship. A B final is their kind of consolations, right? They're swimming for 9th through 16th. So in the morning, you swim preliminaries to qualify for finals. And at night, you swim again for your final place. And in that, I believe, first place in that individual 16 deep is 20 points. 16th place is 1 point. Everything in between.
Yeah, so the preliminaries, right? And I don't mean to compare this to like track, but does that is making the Final Four or the finals, right? The top 8 basically. Is that because there's 8 heats and the winner of each make it, or is it a time thing where they base that off of the top 8 times make it, or whatever however many people are in the finals?
In our sport, for sure, it's all time. So you could be any heat. I mean, it's just the 8 fastest swims are in finals that night.
Wow.
There are, not in collegiate swimming, but I know in different places to track and field, like sometimes they might be running the 1500 and and whatever they might do, like the top 4 or something make it back in each heat, stuff like that. But yeah, this is purely time.
Solely time. Okay. And diving, which I'm just curious to know about, right? Because I know diving's all about, and I've watched some diving, and I know they have the whole, they get points based off of how well they enter the water, the difficulty of the trick, right? Things like that. So when it comes to those type of things, how do they score those things? And really, what's the importance of a dive team? And I don't mean this in terms of it, but like, does the dive team, is that its own separate like event that they get their own national tournament, or they get their own thing, or do their points also count towards the swim team score?
Yeah, no, you definitely think track and field.
Okay.
Throwing a shot put, wildly different than running the mile. 100-meter dash, right?
Yes.
But the sport is together, and that's same swimming and diving. Funny kind of side is I feel like we always look at swimmers, even a sprinter is kind of more of a grinder. They are like training junkies, and we look at divers as like almost like more like they are daredevils. I mean, in my mind, I'm a swimmer. You got to have a screw loose to want to stand up on a 10-meter platform and launch yourself off of it and do some movements and land in the water. That's daredevil. So there are different personalities, that kind of draw you to those sports. So, but in diving, what they do is they'll have a judging panel, and they judge each dive. They'll have in a championship meet, they might have 5 judges, and they'll take 3 of the middle 3 scores throughout the high, throughout the low. And then they take that total, let's say it's 5 each, 5, 5, 5, that's 15. And then they multiply that by the degree of difficulty. So if it's a really hard dive, it might be, 3.1 degree of difficulty. Easy dive might be 1.2. So 15 times 1.2 is not very many points. 15 times 3.3, 3.1, that's a lot of points. So that's how and then they do like a list of 6 dives, and so now it's point total based on the difficulty of dive and the scores they got.
I see.
So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is, yeah. And so they really have to put together the right, what do I want to say? They have to really put together the right list, the right resume, what they're trying to do at that event, and really try to get that taken care of. So as a coach who coaches both, how do you delegate your time between swimming and diving? I mean, I'm sure it's difficult, and I'm sure since you're a swimmer, right? And I know you said you may not have the same screw loose as some of these divers. So I know it might be one of those things, but how do you coach them both?
I can guarantee you, I hire a good diving coach. You would not want me. You would not me to go down there and I'd be like, hey, that's a great splash. I give that a 6. No, I mean, no, Seth, that was not what we were intended. So no, I have it's just I wouldn't, I have a diving coach. He sticks strictly to the divers, coaching them, and then I have a staff of some assistant swim coaches. And then but I do work with the divers, but it's really more like they're a part of the team, and so, yes. I have meetings with them. We talk, we set goals, we do things like that, but they don't want me down there really coaching them up. They're in team meetings where we're talking about our vision and things we want to accomplish. Absolutely. They participate in all that. Absolutely. But, they train different. Their training times are often different than the swimmers, but we're all together.
I mean, it sounds just similar to track, right? And I hate to compare it to track, but if you were a sprinter your whole life, you're probably not going to go try to show how to throw a discus or hammer throw, just because that's not something you're there. So that makes sense. Yeah, having a good coach is an important piece to your program. What would you say is how important is it to have a good coach and coaching staff, around you as a head coach? To be able to trust a coach and trust these guys or women to help with certain aspects of a program. So how important is it to have a good coaching staff around you?
Well, I mean, it's huge. I'm really fortunate. I have a really good staff. My longtime assistant, Jessica Rodriguez, this is her 8th year with me, but she was a volunteer assistant for a couple years before that.
Okay.
We have another assistant, Guy Bowles, he just finishing his first year, but he was an add-on. They increased my budget, and we were able to get another coach. We didn't used to have diving, so when they added diving, clearly I was like, well, you want diving, you're gonna have a hire a coach. So I have a diving coach. Another thing that's changed in our sport, you talk about just things that have evolved. Like I remember when I first started coaching, there might be like 2 or 3 athletic trainers in the whole department. And I mean, if one of my athletes even like, oh, here's bag ice, they very little for us. It was, because I had to take care of the sports that are really getting hurt.
Yeah.
But we have basically our own trainer now. And she actually, Megan Huston, and she dove at University of Texas. She's become a trainer. She gets our sport. She gets diving clearly. She's been around the water. So like I have a really great group around me just that are on the deck and doing the jobs they do every day. And, I probably could be a better delegator. We all got things to work on.
Always, yeah.
I tend to internalize a lot of stuff, and sometimes they find it out when the team finds it out when I'm announcing it. And so they just kind of know that's Seth, that's how he does it. But at the same time, that everybody's got jobs and kind of responsibilities within our program. Most often, I try to avoid anything to do with administrative work if I can. I grew up doing it when I was a staff of one. And I think it's only fair that they learn how to do it now.
Of course.
And of course, I think that is me helping them learn to move on.
Yeah, you get 2 birds with 1 stone. You're helping, but you're also doing what you don't like to do. It's 2 for 1. Yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone. I like it. Absolutely. No, that's fair. And so, I agree. I think it's important to have a good coaching staff, like you said, not only for delegation stuff, but for helping, more eyes always is never a problem. And it doesn't hurt anybody to see more eyes, and having people who might be able to have different. I was talking to my men's coaches yesterday, how we're looking to get an assistant as well, and having somebody else who might be able to show certain different techniques or maybe know different things, right? And really be able to, I can show one way, they can show the other, or we come together and put them together, right? And the kids can kind of take what they like, especially in wrestling, because it's, kind of in the moment feel, but also in your sport, it's also one of those things where maybe they take a little bit of what you said, a little bit of what they said, and it works really well, right? And so I feel like that's a huge thing as well.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there's going to be athletes on my team that are going to be more comfortable going to Jessica than they would to me. And if I didn't have her, there might be a real disconnect, and
fair, that point too.
Vice versa. And so, yeah. And I get that. And my ego is not that big where like they want to go to you, you give them great advice, like do it, like awesome. It's making them go. So I'm totally cool with that. I love that.
It's important too.
Just as important as anything else is having a coach that they can trust, whether it's you or them, right? They're all here, and it's nothing personal. It's just, they may connect better with that person than you, or vice versa. So being able to, like you said, the ego thing is important to not have as a coach.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, let's face it. I mean, these are 18, 19, 20, 21. They're not going to tell an old guy like me something that they probably much more comfortable telling to Jessica. I get it. I probably don't even want to hear it anyway. So, perfect. It's great. Fair. Same with Megan, our trainer. I mean, a lot of go to and trust her, but because she's taking care of their bodies to keep them healthy. So absolutely.
It's important. So, because you have Jessica and obviously you on staff, we don't have to dive too much into recruiting like crazy, because you've already talked about some things that you think are important that you look for, right, with the glass half empty or glass half full versus half empty mentality. But just briefly, you have coaches on staff. I was looking at your roster before we got on the call, and when I first reached out, you guys have athletes from really all over the world. Obviously Texas is your state, but you have athletes from all over the country, all over the world. So, just real brief, like how much play does your assistants have in your recruiting? And then second part of this is, how much, or the better question is probably what are you looking for outside of the half glass, half empty type of thing when it comes to your athletes? Like I know swimming is a time, marks and things like that. So I'm sure that's a big deal too. But is there anything outside of marks and outside of like that glass half glass half full mentality that you are searching for?
Yeah, recruiting is it's really interesting. I mean, it just you're trying to evaluate and make educated guesses in a lot of ways just on who he thinks got an upside and is going to perform, when they get to college. And like it ain't easy. And anybody who's not in the sport and like, again, you think of just the general public and like they just do not understand there's a lot of missing when you think something's going to really work in a day. And I mean, that's, it's what it comes down to, in my opinion, in order, like, and again, I'm really fortunate in multiple ways. I've been here a long time. Like I know what is going to be successful at Rice University, like through trial and error, because I have not always nailed it, right? But I think our percentage is higher now. But what I really look for and what we talk about, and I want our assistants finding out when we're out, is first off, they have to kind of want to be in a place like Rice University. And it's not for everybody. That's cool. That's going to move a lot of people off our list. It's demanding academically. Small classes encouraged to kind of be participative. I mean, some people want to hide and be in a big class and et cetera and all that. So it takes a certain type of person who wants to be in this environment, right? So that's what I look for really first, because if they can't thrive over there in the academic buildings, it ain't gonna happen here. I guarantee you. And so that's one. That's huge. The other thing, like really look again, like it's glass half full, passion for the sport. I mean, being a Division I athlete, being any athlete, at the collegiate level, time demands. We're year-round sport. I expect them to train in the summer. Things like that. You got to love it, because if you don't love it, we're going to find out real quick. Once everything's really going. So those are things we really look for. I think for us, then, again, I've been here a long time. I think our culture of our team attracts people. Someone comes on our recruiting trip, and if they really connect and the girls on the team really resonate with them, our chances of getting them are really high. And same thing. I mean, if someone comes in and visits and, the team's like, I don't know. And, a lot of red flags. I mean, we're going to do a lot more homework to see if that person's going to be a fit. So I feel like we've done a really good job of finding people who are going to be successful at Rice. And, I would, the thing I would say, you have me talking, when I'm recruiting and talking to a recruit, I want someone who's going to be, I don't want someone who's going to just go into survival mode here. I've got them, I've had them, and you graduate, but, did you really thrive? Did you accomplish a lot of things? I want to find people like who are going to thrive academically, thrive socially, thrive athletically. And again, that's a lot to ask, but you get someone who's doing great in school, they're appropriately challenged, they've got a nice core of people and friends around them and people lifting them up they trust, and they're helping them be a better person. Man, the swimming, the training, this being on the team, that's the icing, that's the gravy. And so again, like that's what we're looking for to make it all work.
Yeah. I can agree. I think, like you said, whenever you get athletes down to campus, I'm sure visits are a big deal for that reason, for culture, not only because, anybody can be a certain way on a phone call, but when you get to know them in person, it can sometimes switch, right? But like you said, the culture thing is big. And whenever you get these athletes on campus to feel that culture, connect with these athletes, I'm sure it's a huge deal. And so that leads right into I have like a few more questions for you. I have like 2 or 3 on the philosophical side, and then I have some fun ones to end with. I've had to think about some stuff on the terms of swimming, because I'm not, my first time having a swim coach. So we're gonna try these questions out on the fun side of it as we get to the end. But when it comes to the culture, since you just mentioned how that's such a big thing for the girls to most likely buy into, if everything else is right, the culture is going to be the thing that pushes them over the edge. You know, how do you build a successful culture on the level of buy-in and mindset?
I forgot. No, like, again, I feel like it was when I got here, I had a vision, what I wanted. I mean, you know, it's always hard to sell the people who are there, you know, that have already been in a program before. So you kind of have to had to be patient with them, had to give them some, like, they're not gonna, it's just not gonna, I'm not gonna sell them on everything. And it, you know, every year we just get the classes that we brought in, filled up the team more and more. And I feel like it just has kind of evolved. But yeah, things for me, like big thing for me, again, just talking about what we're looking for that's going to thrive at Rice. But I'm looking for people, you know, positive, want to have some maturity, want to contribute and influence and be involved in something bigger than themselves. And I think our team is very much team first. You know, all women can be pretty tricky. You know, they can get in their little groups and kind of nitpick. And, you know, I've been really fortunate. We've had minimal, really kind of clicky things. And I think drama starts with the staff. You know, if I don't come in and I'm not consistent and they don't know what's coming from day to day, I mean, that, like, I'm going to contribute to that dysfunction. And I mean, I'm pretty even keeled. My staff is typically very even keeled. We don't, occasionally we create the drama, but I mean, we're not fueling it. We're not creating it. And I think that sets kind of the tone. But we've just, again, I think we've got a lot of unselfish people on our team. Ultimately, I mean, it is not hard for me to get someone to swim or an event that's not maybe what they consider their best, because it's going to make our team better. And I mean, there's a lot of places out there that you know, I do, this is what I do, you know, and they're thinking they're more important than the team, or I just don't have that. And I think it's just who we're looking for is first. And then I think when people are in the program, they just start to kind of, you know, again, we've used the word evolve, but I just feel like they kind of fit into that structure and live it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You have to live it, and you have to produce that environment that you want the people to thrive in. And I can understand how that's such a big piece. And yeah, the clicky thing can definitely be a big thing. I tell the girls, I don't want any toxicity. I don't do drama. And so we're not going to allow that to be a thing. And if we have to squash it, we squash it. Right. And I've been pretty lucky as well to where we haven't had a whole lot of that either. And I hope that continues. Right. And it starts top down, right? So very big piece there. And so, you know, this if you guys don't know Coach Huston, some of his successes, he's I believe 5-time Conference USA Coach of the Year, right? You've produced athletes who have went to the NCAA championships and obviously have done really well there. Been at Rice for a long time. So, you know, I know the Coach USA Coach of the Year, whether that matters to you or doesn't, right? These things are accomplishments. And so you've had some success throughout your career. So how do you build a successful program on the level of wins, and then how do you sustain that year after year?
Well, for me, you know, like, so we've been fortunate to win the last 2 years, and we wouldn't be winning if I didn't have an athletic director who helped add diving. Like, we didn't have diving for years. I mean, we would kill ourselves in the pool and then get hammered from diving because you're nothing on it, and always end up second, maybe third in our conference. We still perform really well as a team, but you know, you can't do what you can't. You're not in. So first, that's huge. I mean, again, I feel like at Rice, our women's sports have been really valued, done really well. I think we have a great budget for, you know, being a mid-major Division I. You know, our school, you know, it's attractive. So all those things I think really help us kind of come out and be competitive. I go take every year as a new year. Like, what we did last year, done, behind, it's in the books. It doesn't even matter. Yes, maybe does it give us a little more confidence moving forward? Absolutely. But I don't want you, like, people are already going like, are you gonna three-peat? I'm like, well, that's making a lot of assumptions. There's probably a lot of other programs that would like not that to happen. So no, what we're going to focus on next year is how are we going to get better? How's our team going to kind of grow individually? And this kind of goes, I think, back to even the other question is, I want everybody should evolve every year. If you are the same when you graduate as when you came here, then I failed. And, as a freshman, you can find ways to influence and lead. You're not going to be getting up there in front of the team, rah-rahing them. But if you're doing the same thing as a sophomore that you were as a freshman, like you haven't grown, how do you build on that? And everybody, I think one of our reasons we've been successful is we really work hard on everybody finding a way to influence and take a role on the team and make us better. Not everybody's going to win events. Not everybody's going to go to NCAAs. Some people, like we get to conference, I got some of our girls who don't score are like they're face painted. They're like up racing and cheering for every race. That is energy and stuff like that. That's huge. So everybody it's really important to find kind of how you're going to make the team better. And it's just going to look different for different people. That's kind of, in a nutshell, what I think I try to do and I think that keeps the team happier too. Like they felt like they gave something to the success.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important. Make them feel like they're important, make them feel wanted, and make them feel like it's home. And it's, like you said, it's important to produce that environment. I really appreciate you doing that. And my final question, which you answered earlier, but I always ask this question at the end is, what's your coach's why? I know you said about your why is to, for the kids' development, and you've kind of touched on it a few times, right? Is if they're the same person when you found them versus when they leave, right? Like whether it's development athletically or personally, you failed as a coach, but you also love to see their development. So just to retouch on that, your coach's why, feel free to open up again. If there's anything else that you'd like to add to why you do this outside of just the development of them as people. If not, that's fine. It might be the main thing, and that might be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going for a record here. I'm going to try to get you up to your longest podcast. So, it's like for sure. I love to see how people kind of change. And the challenge that's the challenge. A lot of times you're like, I sometimes will call it like, I need to see growth on steroids. I want to see you evolve faster. And how do we kickstart that? How do we stimulate that? Because so often we have people do incredible things as a senior because they really have put it together and just finally figured it out. And I'm like, well, I want them to figure out that as a junior or maybe, before. So like, like my why a lot and why I still do this is every year's different and all the people are different. And it's fun to try to come up and try to take on the challenge of seeing people evolve and grow maybe at a faster level. And I think where I'm at now coaching to where I was like 15 years ago, I think I'm better at that. My staff is better at that. Our team is better at that than before. And that's just experience, right?
Yeah.
So, the stick in the sport, youngsters, young coaches, like you got great energy when you're young. You got a lot of wisdom, I think, from your experience when you're old. And it's really valuable.
Yeah, putting them both together is important. I love that. That's a great why, and the development, it's outstanding. So I really appreciate that, talking about that. Guys, if you're still watching this on YouTube, make sure you guys hit that bell, like, subscribe, all the 9 yards. If you guys are an audio listener, make sure you guys hit those stars, leave a review, say what you got to say, but say with your chest because Coach and I want to hear it. Coach, like I said, I have 2 fun questions to end with for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So the one question I have for you is, what is your favorite event to watch?
I love the 400 IM.
Okay.
Intermedley, right? Is that what it's called?
The individual medley is where you have to swim all 4 strokes.
Yeah.
Everybody generally has strength. Everybody has a weakness. There's that rare person who's pretty darn good in everything. And there's a lot. There is a lot of strategy. You got to stay in your own lane and swim your race. And it's just fun to watch that, and it's fun to train people for it because there's just so many variables and very nuanced. So I like that.
Okay.
400 IM. Okay, I like that. My final question for you is, what state produces the best high school swimming?
Um, and well, Texas is really, really good. I mean, we're a huge state. I mean, California is like just always a really strong swimming state too. But there's a few. I'm gonna Florida. Clearly, it's a really good one. So everybody kind of thinks maybe of them in many, many sports, but Indiana has really been a great producer. Illinois generally, I'm gonna miss some, but yeah, there's I said it earlier. There's some pretty darn good swimming across the country, and again, uh, there's great athletes coming out of every corner of the country and the world, and you just got to keep your eyes open. And again, for us, we're looking for people who want to be at Rice, and Rice has a pretty nice rep, so we can get them from all over.
Absolutely. I like that. Okay. So there's 3 to 5 states in there there's probably more, but okay. Texas is dang good.
Absolutely.
Texas is dang good.
Fair.
Texas pretty darn good, rootin' tootin' good. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Coach, I appreciate you jumping on here. I really appreciate your why and your philosophy, and really just talking about the sport. Giving me and the listeners some knowledge on the sport of swimming and diving. So I really appreciate taking the time to talk to us today. So thank you again.
Yep. Thank you for having me, Casey. It's fun. I mean, old guy always likes to talk, so there you go.
Hey, well, guess what? You call yourself old. Well, this young guy likes to talk too. I don't know. People calling me Unc now that I've hit 30, but I mean, whatever. I like to talk too, but no, I really appreciate it, man. I would love to, at some point in the future, if you ever have a chance to touch base again, I would love to, just talk maybe a little bit more X's and O's, maybe a little bit more behind the scenes stuff. I think, like a more day-to-day stuff, I guess, the stuff that's some coaches out there would like to know, maybe what you do to get your athletes a little bit better. So if that time ever comes, I would love to have you back on if time frames ever work out, of course.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys again for listening. Thank you guys for watching as well. There we go. Almost fumbled there. Appreciate you guys so much for being a part of this. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.